This here is a machine from 1922. It's a really amazing time in music. There's all this musical innovation going on. The birth of jazz. You have the birth of country music. I'm going to play a record by Eddie South and his Alabamians. This one's from 1927, By the Waters of Minnetonka. Yeah, thank you. Thanks.
Yeah, I appreciate that you're here.
Thanks.
About 2 years ago, I was approached by Pavilion Press to do the new version of Portland Then and Now. If you want the book, you can get the book. You might already have the book, but this is going to be some new stuff. This here is Portland in 1928, and there are familiar aspects. You can see the stadium right over here. Of course, there's Mount Hood. There's the Burnside Bridge. But we know that there's a lot of things that have changed from this picture. You could do a Then and Now book from just the time in 2003 that the last issue came up with to now. So if we did do that book, it would look something like this. That's the exact same spot, an entire block near Prescott and Interstate. And so what this is going to be is it's going to be a meditation of change, but also of continuity. Most of us are familiar with Minor White's photographs of Front Street taken in 1941, just before Harbor Drive was built, basically designed to load and offload ships and steamboats. But where was it? This is standing on the Burnside Bridge looking down at Nadeau Parkway. And in the middle here is actually where Front Avenue was in the 40s. It's been expanded. Another thing that's good about, looking at pictures of the past, comparing them to the present, taking it all in, is it challenges the way we remember things. So this is a picture in 1905, and the idea was a book written for the Lewis and Clark Exposition. They were worried that people would see Chinatown as something sinister, because they're not from Portland. So they want to portray it as something exotic. And there's a slight difference. But they were showing you Portland's Chinatown and telling all the neat things that you could see in it. And it's a vanished world. But really it's not. This is a great Vietnamese restaurant now at 2nd and Taylor. These two buildings are the same buildings that were in that first picture, but they've been modernized over time. Do people know this building? This is called the Phoenix Building and is an early home to Povey Glass. There was a larger building that followed it. In the 1920s to the 1940s, there was a streamlining movement. It literally looks like the cement is some sort of gunite that's being shot at the building because it's all spackly. And you see the original cast iron still there. But this is how the building looked when it was Povey Glass. And my theory is that a lot of this stuff is underneath that cement to this day. So in some ways, it's low-hanging fruit for a preservation effort. This is the Director Building on 3rd and Yamhill. And it used to be called the Powers Furniture Building. So what's the best way to have a fire sale to advertise it? Make a fire on top of your building with pyrotechnics so that people think there's a fire, and that's going to draw a lot of people in. And so as all the people come in from town to see this burning building, he pops out and says, "It's a fire sale." And he got into trouble for that. And there is the trademark of Powers Furniture, the goose. The thing survived the Columbus Day storm. But after that, it was somewhat weakened. This is an interesting little building up on Page and Albina. At one time, there was a large house and private pleasure grounds. So that's just like intriguing, you know? The reason why it was private pleasure grounds is that this was leading down into a geographical feature known as Montgomery's Slough. And it was this kind of low, swampy area that is now filled up. It took decades to fill up. This is a part of Portland that has dirt from the whole planet. This is a very now picture. This is 3rd and Oak. You have your food cart and your cannabis billboard and your surface parking lot that's been here since 1958 and the U.S. Bank Corps Tower. But before that, you have this lovely building, the Ainsworth Block from 1882. And Ainsworth Block was built by John Commingers Ainsworth, a steamboat magnate who later became a banker. His steamboat company made Portland the city built by gravity because you would have steamboats coming down from the mountains meeting ocean-bound ships, and that's how this became first the Ainsworth Bank and then the first headquarters of U.S. Bank. Now you see the U.S. Bank Corps Tower. It's a direct descendant. This is the Oregon Pioneer Building, used to be called the Railway Exchange Building. But if you go back to the 1920s, not a lot has changed. You have the arches from the Great Light Way on 3rd Street, kind of a doomed attempt to stop downtown from moving west. So some of these pictures also reveal whole house types that have vanished from the scene where they were at. This is Broadway and Benton. So this is right in front of Memorial Coliseum. And here's what's here today. The Poulsen House is for sale this year. I'm sure that someone in this room would have the imagination to know what to do with a beautiful house like this. So how then do we reconcile it with this photograph? And some of you probably know the story that there were 2 houses, one for Inman and one for Poulsen. They were twins. And both of them, if you look north, you would see their giant mill complex with huge piles of sawdust where OMSI is today. So that would be the Inman-Poulsen Mill. The Poulsen House exists to this day, but the Inman House was literally pulled down, I mean quite literally, with a chain wrapped around it and a bulldozer in 1958. I think it's important that we know where these houses are and what they were because they're part of Portland's architectural history. So this house here is the John W. Kern House on Powell between 29th and 30th. Beautiful house. And there you go. This picture is as the building's being demolished, somebody is going through the effort of saving the weather vane. Where is that weather vane? This is the John A. Brown House. This house was going to be moved out because of a new large complex, which is still there to this day, and there was a big effort to save it. They were actually able to move it. And after it got to Couch Park, it sat there, and nothing happened. Eventually, the association gave up, and the building was torn down. So it was so close. Nice houses here. And what's the story of the guy with the number? What the city of Portland would be doing was if they were widening a street or doing a project that would impact property owners, they would have this guy stand in front of a photograph so that it could be indexed. So here's the place today. I was able to find a number guy. Burnside has obviously been widened, and it could have been for that very project that was being mentioned by, the last picture. This is a building on Southeast 33rd and Yamhill. Probably, I always picture it as kind of a gray-brown. So today, when you look at it, it's just bright. You have the street art, you have trees and lots of vegetation. This house, if I was to pick any house just strictly as a work of art that is the biggest tragedy that we lost in Portland, it would be the Knapp House. This is the one that I miss the most. And so today you can still see that stone wall. And the only little bit of hope that I could bring to that story is the Architectural Heritage Center still owns all the trim to this nook. I would love to be able to stand in a room of the Knapp House, and technically, it's still possible. Not everything needs to be missed. This is a picture of downtown. There's an amazing amount of toxic scrapping going on. And here's the same area today. Gorgeous new bridge. I like to do this. I could do this a long time. Some areas in Portland just seem to be cursed to sort of a natural ugliness. This is the old Bridgeport Hotel. It was on the east end of the Burnside Bridge. What's there now? The building you love to hate. To end it tonight, I wanted to show you this picture here. And this is a picture at the end of the Civil War in Portland. They have strung candles on boards for blocks to make, in a sense, this great light show in Portland to celebrate. It's a different world. But if you read something written the same year, rents are up an exorbitant figure. And before a house is completed, at least half a dozen applications are made to rent the whole building or part of it. Many houses contain 2 or more families, and people are crowded and huddled into every nook and corner of the city, affording the least protection or shelter from the storms. That sounds very familiar. And the only constant in the story is change. Portland today, once again, and I hope you all have a good rest of the event tonight.